Well, hello and welcome, awesome students. My name is Dr. J. I'll be your instructor for the next 8 weeks as we dive a little bit into industrial, organizational, really more what I call consulting psych. And this week, or over the next couple of weeks, rather, we're certainly going to talk about some concepts related to this and kind of expand your understanding in human behavior, really, certainly expand your understanding of human behavior, but kind of take it a different direction than maybe what you've had in the past. Where in the past, we typically do in a clinical environment, we're working with patients, we're working in individuals with mental health challenges. It's more on the personal aspect. A lot of what we're going to do in consulting or in an IO class is going to be more focused on individuals. However, I will say this, certainly it's the individuals within the organization that tend to create some of the challenges. And so certainly it's just looking at things from a different perspective. When we're working with consulting projects, we're working in industrial applications. And so nonetheless, I'm excited to work with you over the next 8 weeks. And just to give you a quick upfront and overview, I'm going to do an introduction presentation on the content each and every week. I have a structured series of announcements that I'm going to send out to you. And in these announcements and in this video, I'm going to give you some tips and insights and walk you through the assignments so you have a clear understanding of what the expectation is. And gang, this class can be really easy, a lot of fun, and you'll certainly get a lot out of it, but you got to put the time into it. And so certainly I know some students all students are very busy. We're all very busy, right? But you made a commitment to be here, so certainly put the time and energy into your studies so you can learn from your experience. It's far more than just about getting a grade, but actually knowing and understanding what it is that you're talking about. Is particularly students in our psychology program, you're all going to be looking to go into a master's program in most cases. In most cases, students that I have in the 400 levels, I teach this class. I also teach a capstone course. Students at this level are going into a master's program and beyond. And so you really want to ensure that you know what it is that you're talking about. And so I say sometimes it's a lot more than just getting the grade in the class, but actually having a solid mastery of the content. And so nonetheless, I'm going to dive in, give you a little bit of overview. There is some information about me. As I said, I'm a clinical psychologist, and so my background primarily working with kids, a lot in residential treatment settings. I work with at-risk youth. I do also work with at-risk adults, but largely for the last 20 years or so, I focus heavily on consulting projects, working with groups, working with organizations. I do a lot in terms of coaching their individuals on giving presentations, connecting with your audience, doing team dynamics, team building, leadership kind of stuff, personal growth kind of stuff. And so that's the bulk of what I've done over the last 20 years or so. And a lot of what I do now, quite honestly, is teach and consult these days. I've been an online instructor for, it's actually several more than 10 years, probably about 13 years or so. It's something I'm quite passionate about doing. I really connect with the material, and I want to certainly connect with you best that I can in a virtual kind of way, because a lot of what we're going to do in this course is me pushing out some videos and some content information, possibly some feedback and discussion posts and videos. So you have an opportunity to get to know me a little bit in this video. Hopefully I'll get to know you a little bit in terms of the energy that you put into your submissions. And so, as I always tell students, we see when students take shortcuts, we really can. Some of the classes I teach, just as kind of an FYI, I do psychology classes, of course. I do pretty much all of them. There's a couple of things I'm like, yeah, I'm not real savvy on that. Forensic, for example, is not really my area of specialty, so you probably won't see me in one of those classes, but I do a lot with medical ethics, critical thinking, critical reasoning. Sometimes I teach on a couple of classes, and so sometimes it's whatever they throw at me. I have a master's degree in business as well as an undergraduate degree in business, and so a well-rounded education in terms of coaching and working with individuals as well as teaching classes. Some personal tidbits about me I always laugh is my hobbies are very much about travel, meeting people, experiencing different cultures, seeing the United States, seeing the world. And so I am very, very frequently on the go. Along those lines, I work and teach really from any place that I can get an internet connection. And I stress this because you as a student have a busy life. That doesn't mean you can't take your stuff with you. I personally completed my undergraduate degree as an on-campus student with a job that required me to travel. I also did an online degree. My doctoral program was all on campus, but I did a master's degree program online. And again, I traveled quite extensively, so pretty accustomed to taking my laptop with me. And I stress that again because you always have choices in how you're going to create success in the classroom. I was going to say create, and then it shifted to complete, but nonetheless. I digress. Complete your submissions in any way, shape, or fashion, but it doesn't mean you can't do it on the go. So here's some just general success tips as a student. Certainly help you in this class as well as in the program. Read all announcements. Hopefully the students that probably need to hear this message are actually watching this video now, but I encourage you to read all the announcements, watch these videos each week. Try to make them as short and as fun as I can. But gang, you really want to plug into the information and keep on top of it. I got to tell you, I sometimes have been accused of holding the bar quite high in terms of grading, but here's what I do find. The students that pay attention in the class and they're active and engaged in the coursework tend to do very well in the class. So put the time in and you'll do just fine. Read assignment requirements at least 2 times. Okay, read through everything twice, gang. I have, just wrapped up and completed some of the capstone students. So these are students finishing their degree program, and I'm still surprised when I see students who clearly overlooked one of the requirements or a couple of things that were clearly stated in the instructions and often in this video. And so just pay attention, read the materials through, go through the information, pay attention to the announcements. You should do quite well in your assignments. Do your readings. Don't shortcut this. Let me stress to you now and up front, this is a research-driven class. Okay, this is not I'm going to think up some intervention off the top of my head, but rather you're going to apply research-driven strategies to support your clients, or in this case, work in the case analysis. And so you want to make sure that you're putting the time into the reading so that you have good information to address the questions, complete the assignments. Be active and engaged. Don't wait till the last minute. That's never a good strategy for success. I always encourage students to do a little bit each day as opposed to waiting until 10 minutes before the deadline. Now, here's a tip, gang. Any of you who have aspirations on working with organizations, I can tell you the downsides are you will generally make more money per hour than you will. You'll never have to deal with insurance. You often get to travel. You have high rates sometimes. You can work when you want. I said those with the downsides, right? I was kidding, of course. There's a tremendous amount of benefit in working with organizations, but I can tell you, you really got to know your stuff if you're working with organizations, and you have to be proactive. Okay, so that is a big strategy for success in this class, in every class, and certainly in graduate school. When the bar goes up much higher than what you've experienced, you're going to want to make sure that you're active and engaged. I have students all the time that honestly, their grade drops because they missed a deadline and the class ended and they were behind and putting everything off to the last minute, so don't do that. Work ahead when you can. You always have the option to work ahead in this and every class throughout the program, so why not do it? I coach individually a group of students, and I have for pretty much my entire career, and I have certain requirements that the students have to comply with, and in this case, they would always have to be a week ahead. So in order to work with me on my team, they have to be a week ahead. Now, my students all typically graduate with just about a perfect GPA most of the time. They do quite well, and they're always the ones with the least amount of stress, and they have really good work product. And the reason for this is they just follow some of these simple tips, gang. So work ahead where you can, be proactive, get out there and do some of these things that'll help you tremendously. Last but not least, always work to submit your assignments at least 24 hours in advance of deadlines. Okay, if you have an important deadline with a client, you know it's due Monday morning at 8 a.m., why not have it finished by Sunday at 8 a.m.? Because what if your laptop goes out? What if the internet crashes? What if, you trip and sprain your ankle and have to go sit in the ER? There's a million things that can happen close to the deadline. Get things done a day in advance, plan to have things done a day in advance, or hell, get them done by Friday and take the weekend off is a much, much better strategy. So I hope these tips helped you, probably just in some cases a little bit of reinforcement, I hope. But nonetheless, if I could be of any support on just some general tips, I will certainly pass those along. And I send out a few things here and there in terms of announcements. So be aware, be on the alert for those as they come out to you. So let me dive in and walk you through the coursework for the week. About some of the stuff that we're going to be doing within this course is going to be applying psychological concepts into more organizational applications. That's it in a nutshell. And a lot of what we're going to be doing is analysis, taking a look at data and applying some research to solve a problem. That's the gist of what we do when we work with organizations. And so here's just some of the overall learning objectives here that we're going to talk about. Describe when an organization is not a good fit, analyze that documentation regarding current state of an organization, and analyze an organization based on background information. So as I talked about some of these things, we're going to give you a vignette to work on, and you're going to want to work through and address these questions. Now, again, I'll stress the importance of doing the reading each week, and you'll do just fine. And certainly you're going to grasp a solid understanding throughout the course of the class, kind of what industrial organizational psychology is about. Not sure if any of you have had any other classes in and around this subject, but I typically call a little bit more what we're going to do in this course consulting psych, which is, I feel, a little bit different than industrial organizational, which is sometimes just the umbrella of it all. So you'll hear me refer to consulting psych back and forth, and I think it's a good fit for a lot of individuals. And for those of you who don't think you're going to be doing this, I want you to really be open to the possibility that one day you're likely to be a supervisor. One day you will likely be someone who develops a training for your work group. One day you may be part of a nonprofit who needs to restructure and comes to you for help. And these are the types of things that we're going to want to take a look at and think about as we go through some of this coursework. So quick overview, the introduction in terms of this page talks about the readings, and I've gone through and taken a look at all of these readings, or kind of pulled these together for you to show you real quick. This is really good in terms of working with a new organization. Now, we could be talking about going to work with a client. You could have a client that might have challenges within some of their teams, or a team might have problems with itself, or you're just trying to understand the organization and you need to integrate yourself into this group. You basically need to walk in and get the trust and acceptance of these individuals quite rapidly. So this is not something like we're going to hang out for 6 months and get to know these individuals. We're going to have to kind of jump in and hit the ground running. And so those are some tips that's talked about in here. Now, another thing to consider as a consulting psych is you have to have a good understanding of some generalities in terms of employment laws or work standards, typicals within a particular organization, etc. And so we're going to talk about some things in terms of legal implications. And so it's important that you have some understanding about this. Now, if you were going to accept a project, of course, you would do your homework on that particular company. That's exactly what you're going to be doing this week to address the objectives of the milestone this week. This, by the way, is one of the resources that pops up on the sheet here. I think they're in order here. It's the third one down. And I'm going to go ahead and put the link to this down below because I had to hunt for it. So I do apologize. It just was maybe the link is broken or something, but I found this. I'm going to add this to this, but this is talking about ethical standards from the consulting perspective. Okay, so we have the APA Code of Ethics. Hopefully you're all aware of this document, but this is something that governs the psychological industry. And there are certain aspects within the ethical guidelines that pertain largely to what we do as a consulting psychologist. So go through this information. You'll have a good solid understanding of this. Cognitive dissonance. Gang, I can tell you wholeheartedly, this not only applies to so much of what we're going to do this week in terms of the submissions and in terms of completing the milestones and the projects in this class, but there's a lot of this going on in our society right now, and maybe this will help give you some solid insight on this. This article is a little lengthy, so again, make sure you get a jump start on the reading this week nice and early. Don't be waiting till the last minute because, again, this is relevant information that you're going to want to know, not just to help you with the assignments. And then here's some tips in terms of taking a look at some organizations and not analyzing their data. Okay, so I know this is a lot that's going to be thrown at you. Taking a look at the analysis of the data, and then this is a video that will help to give you a little bit of a clarification, if you will, the difference between quantitative and qualitative data. Okay, so watch this video if you have any confusions or misunderstandings of it. In short, one is something we can easily put numbers to, and one is not. By the way, my research has largely been using qualitative data, so I'm actually quite savvy with the qualitative aspects of data collection. And I'm certainly comfortable with the quantitative aspects, but a lot of people get a little hung up on some qualitative analysis. And so it's a little bit deeper than just what I told you on the surface. One is numbers and one is not. But certainly these are some things that are going to be important, particularly when you're working with organizations and you're working with people. So for the discussion post this week, we have, I believe, 4 discussion posts in this class. I don't know if it's one every other week or something to the effects, but we do have one this week. Do a little quick, couple of sentences on who you are at the top, of course, and then dive into some of these things that we're talking about here with relation to finding out if an organization, when it's a good fit, when it's not, specific codes of ethics that may apply to particular situations. One thing that I want you to do is to be specific in some of these. When you're addressing this, please don't talk in generals about 15 different guiding principles. I want you to pick 1 or 2 and expand your thoughts a little bit more, okay? So the same with all of our submissions. Don't be general, be specific in the submissions. You'll do just fine. Make sure your information is well researched, okay? Dilemmas that may come from this experience. Okay, so gang, you know the drill in the discussion posts. Again, I encourage you to do these sooner as opposed to later in the week. Get those done and off your plate. Get the replies done earlier rather than later too. So many students do the main post. Of course, you have to have that up by Thursday night, and then sometimes I write 1 reply, sometimes no replies, and then wait until 11 p.m. on Sunday to write replies, which sometimes, in full disclosure, I take points off for that. But I digress. Don't wait until the last minute because some students also forget or something comes up and then they miss a significant portion of points from the submission. Just do them right then and there. Do them Wednesday. Get them done. Move on. This is what we're going to be doing for the milestone this week. We're going to be taking a look at a case, and there are a couple of Microsoft Word documents here, which I am trying to pull up now, and Microsoft Word is not cooperating. There it is. There's the data. There's 2 sheets that are going to come with this. One is more of a background understanding of the company itself. The other one talks more specific about numbers, okay, metrics that we can look at and analyze. So here's some things that I would encourage you to do. If you have access to a printer, these are great submissions for printers, gang. You can print this out. You can print this out and make notes in the margin and go that way. You can certainly also highlight and make notes here or just make notes in a notebook, because you're going to need to address specific questions related to this information and tie in the research to validate what it is that you're saying. Okay, so I want to stress that. Compare the information provided, industry benchmarks to determine the company's current state. Okay, overview of the company and the demographics, deficient employee performance areas compared to industry benchmarks. So here's what our company is doing compared to what is the norm within the industry. So again, you're going to want to put the time and energy into doing this. We're talking about the human process. We're going to have to apply certain rules or regulations or an understanding of what is the norm for that particular industry. The same is true about their culture. How is their work culture? What are their norms? What do they do within this organization, or what it might be consistent within the industry? So make sure that you're providing a solid document here, gang. No like 1-2 sentences. And I don't want you to write this as a Q&A where you're going to do people and then you're going to do A and then just put in 2 sentences, B, 2 sentences. We're not going to do that, right? Yeah. Okay. Pay attention. What I want you to do is I want you to create a document in a Microsoft Word format, APA formatting, paragraph structure. Does this sound familiar? Hopefully it's not new to you all. But here's some general guidelines down here, 4 to 5 pages in length. I would say conservatively, each one of these is about a solid paragraph, which is 5 or more sentences. Okay, so a couple of good solid paragraphs is usually 2.5 per page. So easy, 4 to 5 pages should be no problem. Remember, we don't count the cover page or the reference page, and you should have both of those, mostly because I want you guys to just be in the habit of doing that. I always tell students that I'm a stickler for the APA formatting because I want this to be an automatic thing for you. You're going to get to graduate school one day and you're going to go to write a paper and it's not even going to be something you're going to think about. You'll just automatically dive into the APA formatting because you can see it's a very small percentage of what your grade is going to be. But gang, just do it because it's easier to be on autopilot with it. Easier to use the software, to be honest, but I digress. So last but not least, there's a couple of reminders in this week in terms of the project. So here's a little bit of a preview for the project 2 milestone or project 1 milestone 2, however we word these things. So we're going to have multiple projects. Those projects feed into the milestone. I'm sure you guys know the drill, but this is a little preview for next week. Some things to think about. Again, consultants are always looking ahead to what's next. And so just take a look at what we've got going on over the next couple of weeks, and it'll help to give you some insights on what to expect. Now, last but not least, I want to talk real quick about it just to get this out of the way. If you don't have an e-portfolio, if you don't know how to make one, if you don't know what you're doing, if you've always had problems with it, please don't send me an email in week 8 telling me any of that stuff. Why? Because you will now have had 8 weeks to figure it out. Okay, so there's a link here. You can go to the page. Here's some general information about setting up e-portfolios. I would encourage you all to choose this option. It is by far going to be the most robust. It's going to be easily transferable. There's a million reasons why you want to do it. Some students will actually set up WordPress e-portfolios, but if you set this up, create a good one now on Google or on WordPress, for example, it will be something that's like very permanent for you, and you'll be able to customize it very easily however you want it to be. You can also use the tools in Brightspace, but please take the time to go through this information, get those questions answered, and get on track with the e-portfolio, because the week goes right by, and if you don't have some information, then you just don't have it. But I have students constantly telling me that they have always had problems with this. And so they wait till the very last minute in week 7 to ask those questions. Why wouldn't you ask it when you had the problem? Always, as you noted. So nonetheless, I hope this overview helped you to get on track. Let me know if you have any questions. Welcome to the course, and I look forward to working with you. Have a great week.